What's that? AB 1422. Mr. Cooper, are you ready to proceed?
Yes.
Please do.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members. AB 1422 adds the transportation network companies to the list of entities that are required to enroll in the Department of Motor Vehicles Employer Pull Notice Program. The DMV Pull Notice Program helps businesses and government agencies ensure that unsafe drivers are taken off the road quickly by notifying employers when an enrolled participant is involved in an accident, convicted of driving under the influence, or any other actions taken against their driving privileges. Currently, the Pull Notice Program is limited to public agencies and employers. This leaves out TNCs like Uber, Lyft, Sidecar, because drivers utilizing these platforms are independent contractors. Currently, TNCs must manually pull DMV records on a quarterly basis to review driving records, a process that is both inefficient and slow to catch such things as DUIs, accidents, or license suspensions. AB 1422 promotes driver and public safety by authorizing the TNCs to participate in the DMV Pull Notice program and helps improve the safety of passengers utilizing these transportation services. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and with me are several witnesses.
So I do have a first and a second. Please remember the 3 witnesses, 2 minutes. Appreciate you starting off. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members, Alex Leip on behalf of Uber Technologies. AB 1422 would affirmatively require TNCs who are not employers of people who drive on the TNC platform to participate in the DMV Pull Notice Program in a manner that recognizes our unique business model of ride sharing and the truly part-time nature of drivers who partner with TNCs. We're very supportive of the legislation, and we want to thank the author for bringing it to this committee, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Next witness, please.
Chairman, members, Robert Callahan with the Internet Association. We think this is a simple fix bill, and would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Next witness, please.
Annabelle Chang with Lyft. We also support this bill as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to in support?
Mr. Chair, members, Jeremy Mers on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, also in support.
Thank you. Any members of the public in opposition to the author's bill? Thank you, sir. 2 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members, Greg Cook, representing the Greater California Livery Association. This is a one-sentence bill, and we strongly support the requirement for participation in the DMV Pull Notice Program. However, the classification of employee classification is not clear, and as Mr. Bloom stated earlier today, it should be neutral. So we would strongly suggest that the clause, regardless of whether the participating driver is an employee or an independent contractor of the Transportation Network Company, be stricken. Now, today, in earlier testimony on another bill regarding pull notices, we heard of a third participant category called partner. So rather than worry about employee, independent contractor, or partner, wouldn't it be just better to say driver? We urge that the committee consider and the author consider that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions by the committee of the author? Seeing Mr. Nazarian.
Just a comment. I'd love to be able to support this bill, and hopefully some of the folks on the TNC side and I could be agreeing on something. So with that, I fully support your bill. Thank you.
Any other questions or statements from the committee? Mr. Cooper, would you like to close?
Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, sir. We do have a first and a second, Melendez and Asajian. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. As I've said before, public safety is a priority for this committee. I understand that this proposal is somewhat similar to provisions included in another bill we heard today. So as we've worked against deadlines and late double referrals this April, I ask that if they both pass out of the committee today, your respective offices will work with each other to reconcile these proposals along the way. With that, I'll be supporting your bill today. The chair's recommendation is support.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
The motion is a due pass to the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Ashajian. Aye. Ashajian, aye. Baker. Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom. Aye. Bloom, aye. Santiago. Chu. Chu, I. Daly. Daly, I. Dodd. Dodd, I. Eduardo Garcia. Eduardo Garcia, I. Gomez. Kim. Linder. Linder, I. Medina. Medina, I. Melendez. Melendez, I. Nazarian. Nazarian, I. O'Donnell. O'Donnell, I.
13-0, the bill is out. We'll leave the roll open for absent members. Thank you. Mr. Linder, file item number 30, members, Assembly Bill 1171. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I want to begin by thanking the committee staff, and sponsor for working so diligently on finding a workable solution to expedite transportation capital improvement projects on local roadway systems. AB 1171 authorizes regional transportation agencies with expressway projects in their sales tax expenditure plans and that are not on the state highway system to utilize the construction manager, general contractor procurement method. These eligible regional agencies currently enjoy the authority to use design bill authority for implementation of these local projects, and AB 1171 would grant them the use of CMGC as an additional alternative delivery method. The CMGC method has been identified by the Federal Highway Administration and other state transportation agencies to be an innovative way to reduce the time and costs of project delivery. In a CMGC project, one entity is responsible for project development and delivery, which transfers the risk away from public entities sponsoring the project and allows for the private sector innovation to occur. To be clear, AB 1171, thank you, does not change current design build authority nor expand the number of qualified local projects for alternative delivery methods, but provides CMGC authority for use on previously eligible projects as another project tool delivery. With me today to testify in support is Tom Zlotkowski, Executive Director of Capital Southeast Connectors JPA, and Mark Watts from Riverside County Transportation Commission.
So I'll remind the witnesses that
Dave Ackerman.
3 witnesses, 2 minutes each, please. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Zlotkowski. I am from the Capital Southeast Connector Joint Powers Authority located in Sacramento. We are pursuing a 34-mile expressway between Southeast Sacramento and Southeast Sacramento County. In deference to your time, I'd just like to, again, show my support for proposed AB 1171 as a tool to assist the JPA in pursuing a more efficient construction project and a more efficient delivery overall. So I respectfully request your approval.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Watts on behalf of the Riverside County Transportation Commission. We too have a project that would benefit from this type of alternative project delivery. We have several segments in particular that I think would be well used by this or well served by this delivery mechanism, as well as design build for some of the simpler sections. So with that, I ask for your support. Thank you.
Next witness, please.
Mr. Chairman, Dave Ackerman, representing the Associated General Contractors. We utilize this process in the private sector. We've worked with Caltrans on their projects. It does work for the applications in which it's designed, and we urge your aye vote.
Thank you. With that, any other members of the public that would like to testify in support of the author's bill?
Tim Chang for the Auto Club of Southern California urge your support of the bill.
Thank you so much. Any members of the public that have opposition that would like to testify before this committee? Seeing none. Any questions of the committee members of the author? Mr. Linder, would you like to close, sir?
Thank you. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
With that, thank you, Mr. Linder. As you know, I'm a real big fan of CMGC, and thank you for working with my staff on the amendments.
Not today.
Earlier, yes, they were taken out for a clarification. I'll be supporting your bill today. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is a due pass to the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Ashajian. Aye. Ashajian, aye. Baker. Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom. Aye. Bloom, aye. Santiago. Chu. Aye. Chu, aye. Daly. Aye. Daly, aye. Dodd? Dodd, aye. Eduardo Garcia? Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gomez? Kim? Linder?
Aye.
Linder, aye. Medina? Medina, aye. Melendez? Melendez, aye. Nazarian? O'Donnell? O'Donnell, aye.
That bill is out 12-0. We'll leave the roll open for absent members. Congratulations to Mr. Linder. Mr. Chu, item number 2, members, Assembly Bill number 28. Please proceed, Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and member. The number 28 bill is really a Bicycle Protection Act, and as well as the Motorist Protection Act. And currently, we have a law that requires the bicycle to have a reflector on the back of their bicycle. But the reflector, you will not be able to see it unless you're directly behind the bicycle. But in most of the cities, the bicycle lane is on the right of the street. And in many of the cities, we're promoting the multimode of transportation. As the earlier bill presenter indicated, that the number of the bicycle on the street increased drastically over the years.
Move the bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I ask for your aye vote.
Any other members of the public like to testify quickly in support of this bill? Any members of the public that would like to testify in opposition to this bill? Any members of the committee that have questions or statements about the bill? Mr. Chu, would you like to close?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the California Association of Bicycling Organizations for working with my office to amend the bill. Initially, it was a flashing red light, and they believe that in the rural area, the solid red light is a better, more visible to the motorists. So I appreciate their input. And again, I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you for bringing this bill forward. We do have a motion from Baker and / Melendez with a second by Linder and probably a third and a fourth. But we will. I want to thank you for bringing this forward, Mr. Chu, and it's a common sense measure, and I'll be supporting your bill today. So, with that, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
The motion is a due pass to the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Frazier?
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Ashajian? Aye. Ashajian, aye. Baker? Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom? Aye. Bloom, aye. Santiago? Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Daly? Aye. Daly, aye. Dodd? Aye. Dodd, aye. Eduardo Garcia? Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gomez? Kim? Linder? Aye. Linder, aye. Medina? Aye. Medina, aye. Melendez? Melendez, aye. Nazarian? O'Donnell? O'Donnell, aye.
12-0. The bill is out.
Thank you very much.
We'll leave the roll open for absent members. Mr. Chu, would you like to go to item 16? Members, it's Assembly Bill 718.
Thank
Please
you.
proceed.
Thank you again. Thanks to Chair and the member. Assembly Bill 718 will prohibit a city or a county for citing or fining a person just for sleeping in the car, lawfully parked in the lawfully parked vehicle without any other illegal activity. Because I believe that this, when people have no other places to go but to sleep in the car, is really not a public safety issue but a social services issue. And once you impound their cars, and those people usually will not be able to afford the paying for the towing, the storage, and the fine, and end up just losing their vehicle. And that's for many families, that's the only way they be able to take their kids to school or to go to work. So this bill 718 would just prohibit the city or the county for citing or fining a person for sleeping in the car. Talk to some of the law enforcement locally. They don't, those police they don't really want to issue a ticket just because people have no place to go but to sleep in the car. Thank you very much. I again ask for your eye vote. Oh, I'd like to we have a witnesses here, and it's John Bouters as a policy director at Housing California and countless numbers of supporters.
So I'll remind you,
and
of 2 minutes.
The countless number of supporters have gone home. But thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for your time. We appreciate your time and your consideration of this bill. This bill is narrowly tailored to address the limited issue of local governments issuing a ticket to a person because they sleep in a vehicle or otherwise impounding it. Between 2011 and 2014 nationally, we saw a 119% increase in the number of local ordinances that ticket people merely for sleeping in an otherwise lawfully parked car. During that same period of time, which was post-recession, we saw the single largest increase in family homelessness in United States history in the last 50 years. Most of the people who are sleeping in vehicles in California are families and women with children. The reality for people sleeping in a car is that it is more than just a shelter. It is a place where people go for safety. Women's shelters in particular, women cannot take a child, if he's a male, over the age of 13 into a domestic violence shelter. Same-gender issues are an issue in domestic violence shelters, and so for many of them, the next safest place is their car, much safer than a street. On top of that, as the member mentioned, it's a way for transit to school. Education is the greatest predictor for success for homeless children to not be homeless as adults. It is connection to job opportunities and employment. Many people who lost their homes or jobs during the recession are looking for work, and the car is a means for getting them to those opportunities. It accesses medical care for children and people with disabilities. And additionally, it is also the only significant asset that a person has left. And so what we're doing is we're depriving a person of their personal property merely because they're relegated to sleeping in their car, an otherwise lawfully parked car. And all this bill is narrowly doing is saying that locally we should not be punishing people merely because they have no other options. We should be giving them opportunities instead. On a transit basis, it also begs the question when we consider, to wrap up here, when we consider driver safety, we promote public safety by asking people to not drive when they're tired or fatigued.
Wind it up with one sentence.
Yep, and so I would ask you to support this bill and vote aye. Thank you.
Good answer. Thank you. Any other support testimony? Seeing none, any opposition to the author's bill in the public? Any questions from the committee? Mr. Sajian.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. I support you in concept, but there are cities within my district have signs that say no overnight camping because they want to get rid of cars that parked maybe legally, but within the communities or neighborhoods that neighborhoods don't feel safe because they don't know who the person is or what purpose. So the city has an ordinance. You cannot camp. Would this be working against them now?
No. So I got turned off. Sorry. No. So this doesn't exclude metering, resident only, no parking zones, other things like that. It simply removes from the ambit of local control, which I'm a supporter of actually, but it removes the ambit of because you're sleeping. So the act of resting in a vehicle is simply outside of the purview. So there are actually tickets. Some municipalities fine up to $1,000 because a person is sleeping in the vehicle, and that's the only thing this bill does. It does not. It doesn't take away any other local parking regulations. So other enforcement zones or codes can be in place. It just cannot require. It cannot prohibit a person in a lawfully parked car from sleeping.
I just want to be sure we're not taking away any local control power from the local.
Just to the issue of sleeping. Yes.
Any other questions from committee members? Mr. O'Donnell.
Yeah, I think there is a local control issue here. Listen, I don't want people getting their cars towed away for sleeping in the car, especially when they're in dire circumstances that actually cause them to sleep in their car. But what I'm hearing is, even if they had those no camping signs out, they wouldn't be able to do that anymore. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, no. So to be clear, camping is defined differently. And camping, and I don't know if I don't know the member's particular municipality if the street sign says camping, that could be local. But basically, there are about 40 cities in California that have something that says if you are found sleeping in your vehicle, And so it's actually the human act of sleeping that we are trying to make sure that is not actually a prohibited act, both for public safety, for the benefit of the person who rests, whether that's a driver who pulls off the highway to avoid driver fatigue and getting back on the road and doesn't know a local ordinance prohibits them from resting in their car if it's parked, to the woman with children who do their homework at night and go to sleep in the car. It's literally no ordinance related to sleeping. And so I understand I'd be happy to work with the author, obviously, and with any questions we have related to a particular local issue, but the broad scope of this type of ordinance has been limited to regulating the human act of sleeping, which is what we're asking to not have happen.
But the local authority can ask them to move without giving them a citation.
Yes. So a lot of them have 48 or 72-hour move your vehicle or it's towed ordinances. All the other ordinances are in place.
I'm not just talking about 72 hours. If they didn't see the sign and they were caught asleep after hours, let's say from sunset to sunrise, and now locals, like local police officers, can come and knock on the window and say, you have to move.
Yeah, so if there was a no park, yes, I'm sorry.
What would this bill do?
Yeah, so if there was again, that's a separate local issue because at that point, it's the ordinance then says no parking or no being in the vehicle between X hour and X hour. There's nothing that we're not saying that that's the case. We're not saying that you can't do that. So a lot of cities have no parking between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. and that would still be lawful. This is not trying to curb that.
And if I may ask, those no parking with a limited time, usually in the industrial area.
I think Mr. O'Donnell, did you have
if I could just finish here, one of my concerns is oftentimes, let's say someone's sleeping in their car, maybe there's a family sleeping in the car, and a police officer will make contact with them, not to write a ticket, but maybe to offer help, because in Long Beach we have a lot of services for people who are in need, and they might initiate contact in order to make those services available to the individual sleeping in the car. This might prevent that initial contact, wouldn't it? Because there would be no probable cause to make contact.
So otherwise, lawfully parked. I guess the question would be why would a law enforcement officer pick that person as opposed to someone who's eating their lunch on their lunch break? I mean, I understand. I don't want to have a large philosophical debate with you if that's what the committee doesn't want. But
typically, in my experience, you can tell who's probably
Sure.
in need at 3 a.m. if there's a family sleeping in the car. I mean, there's a health issue here too, and there's a variety of services available that I think these people should be able to contact. That's just my concern. Are we throwing up a wall here?
But the intent of this bill is for those people to contact social services agency instead of calling 911.
That's right.
The police
not to write them a ticket, not to tow their car away. I don't want that kind of thing happening as much as are we cutting off an avenue to help? That's my question.
I'm sorry, was there a question you were asking me to respond to specifically?
You can choose to respond. It's your choice.
Can you just repeat the question?
Are we cutting off an avenue for people?
I don't think so. I mean, I do a lot of advocacy with local governments around this issue, and there are other ways to reach out. So one of the things we encourage with some municipalities, as an example, is a couple of them in the state actually offer on city lots. They have 3 or 4 designated spaces for people who need to sleep in their vehicles, and they get to park off the street in exchange for working with county behavioral health, and it's been very successful. So there are ways that we do reach out to people, and those cities don't use ticketing as a way of making contact. And it does turn, there is some stigma between people who experience homelessness and law enforcement because traditionally they've always been cited with that contact, so a lot of them are afraid of it.
Right. I never said anything about ticketing. I said initiating contact. I'm not saying they initiate contact to write a ticket. I'm saying they initiate contact to offer help, assistance, to provide them a list of services available to them. So please don't mix up the two concepts.
Okay, well, and I guess my response is, I think that some local governments do that. So I know in Fullerton, the Fullerton Police Department actually brings along a ride-along who's from County Behavioral Health who go out and contact people in camps, and they offer that service without that ordinance.
And Long Beach has the MET team. There's a variety of models out there. And I'm wondering if this cuts that off.
From my experience as a South Bay City Council member, this is really what our PD rather to do. They felt they're out there to catch the bad guys and not to give ticket to a homeless people. They look at it as a social issue, not as a public safety
We agree
issue.
with that. We agree with that.
And also to address your revenue issue, I can speak again.
I didn't say anything about revenue.
Oh, I thought you asked the question about cutting
This isn't
off
about
all the
revenue. That's the whole
All right.
point. It isn't about writing
All right.
a ticket
Okay.
or impounding a car. It's about offering offering people the services available in your community so that they can, get help.
Definitely. I can speak for,
Get a hand
for
up.
the PD in San Jose PD, yes.
Any other questions of the author? Seeing none, Mr. Chu, would you like to close?
Well, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
So we do have a motion, I believe, Ms. Melendez, were you the first? Okay, and the second was Mr. Linder. So, Mr. Chu, I'm happy to support your bill today. Cities can regulate parking, which has been said, but it makes no sense to prohibit otherwise legal activities just because they take place inside of a parked car. This is both a compassion issue and a safety issue, and I applaud you for bringing it forward. But it also reminds me of my grandfather who would go take a nap in a parked car to get away from my grandmother. So this also provides access for long and lengthy marriages. And I'm not trying to make light of the issue, and I applaud you for bringing this forward. So thank you so much. And Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
The motion is a due pass to the Assembly Committee on Local Government. Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Ashajian. Baker.
Yes, aye.
Ashajian, aye. Baker. Baker, no. Bloom. Bloom, aye. Santiago. Chu. Chu, aye. Daly. Dodd. Dodd, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gomez. Kim. Kim, aye. Linder. Linder, aye. Medina. Medina, aye. Melendez. Melendez, aye. Nazarian. Nazarian, aye. O'Donnell.
That bill is 11-1. It's out. Mr. Chu, we'll leave the roll open for absent members. Thank you so much. Mr. O'Donnell. And Mr. Assagian is on deck. So members, this is a file item number 15, Assembly Bill 678. Please proceed, Mr. O'Donnell.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Just kidding. Good evening. Today I'm pleased to present AB 678, which provides funding for energy efficiency upgrades at public ports throughout the state of California. The California maritime and goods movement industry has worked diligently to meet state emission and energy efficiency standards. The Port of Long Beach, for example, is nearing completion of more than $185 million worth of shore-to-power infrastructure, while the Port of Oakland is undertaking, at a cost of $85 million, an upgrade to their dockside power hookups. Despite these strides, further enhancement of existing port infrastructure is still needed to meet both existing and future demands. To meet these demands, we need to act as partners with the industry and deliver the state resources needed to ensure our local ports remain both competitive and green. AB 678 provides funding to our state ports so they can invest in energy efficiency projects, improve air quality around the ports, and continue their effort to be green. These investments will not only further reduce the environmental impacts associated with ports, but have the potential to lower port operating costs, resulting in improved competitiveness and job growth. With that, I have a couple witnesses here, Mr. Chair.
2 minutes, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. Mike Jacob with the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, sponsor of this legislation. And just in short, the bill before you presents an opportunity to make investments that both increase our efficiency, but also reduce greenhouse gases, but also other emissions too, including diesel particulates and NOx. And we've been able to reduce our emissions of diesel particulate over the last 8 years, in particular by over 80%. The next generation of emissions improvements we need to make are really capital intensive. So we'd like the opportunity to work with CARB, the Energy Commission, the ports, at putting together a program to actually address what the next generation of emissions reductions looks like. Thank you.
Next witness, please.
Tiffany Whiten on behalf of the Infill Builders Federation in support. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support of the author's bill? Any witnesses in opposition to the author's bill? Seeing none, committee members, questions or statements for the author? Seeing none. Mr. O'Donnell, would you like to close?
I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. O'Donnell, thank you for bringing this bill to our committee today. I plan to support it. There's so much work that needs to be done to improve air quality around California's ports. I think this bill makes a lot of sense and targets a huge emission source. And as one of your supporters said, we need to make sure that we do this the right way, and one size does not fit all. Thank you so much. And I will call the Madam Secretary the roll.
The motion is a due pass to the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Ashajian. Ashajian, aye. Baker. Baker, aye. Bloom. Bloom, aye. Santiago. Santiago, aye. Chu. Chu, aye. Daly. Daly, aye. Dodd. Dodd, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gomez. Kim. Kim, aye. Linder. Linder, aye. Medina. Medina, aye. Melendez. Melendez, aye. Nazarian. Nazarian, aye. O'Donnell. O'Donnell, aye.
That bill is out 15-0. We'll leave the roll open for absent members. Mr. Sajian. Members, this is file item 32, Assembly Bill 1178.